This top 3 agent is wanted in All Elite Wrestling, but first, CM Punk is expected to return to WWE. CM Punk has been the talk of wrestling for a number of years at this point, with his recent AEW contract termination sparking speculation on where his future lies. One of the most popular theories has seen fans wonder if he could appear at the upcoming Survivor Series event for WWE in his hometown of Chicago, although recent reports suggested that as of now, this isn't in the plans, although the door remains open in the future. With that said, if a new report from BWE on X is to be believed, Punk may be set to walk through that door in the coming months. According to their recent post, the Second City Saint is set to meet WWE higher-ups to discuss a return, with many in the company expecting the signing to happen, and BWE would write, Punk was recently scheduled for a call with a few board members. Backstage feeling is it's happening. Doesn't mean it's done. I'm waiting for the follow-up on the call. It should be the last step before things go down. The breakthrough comes just 3 weeks ahead of Survivor Series at the All-State Arena, with BWE's story being positive news for those that hope to see CM Punk back inside a wrestling ring in the future. There's of course no confirmation that if a return were to happen, that it would be at the Survivor Series, with Royal Rumble perhaps being another option. With that said, it might be worth holding off until we hear the same news from sources such as PW Insider and Fightful Select before we fully believe it to be true. And next up, another AEW World title match has been announced. Current AEW World Champion MJF is the target of many from the roster, with Jay White, Wardlow, Samoa Joe, and a Mystery Devil all having Max locked into their scopes. On this week's episode of AEW Rampage, another star would add their name to the growing list of talents looking to take the title away from Max before his AEW contract expires in the new year. On the show, Daniel Garcia would declare that he is eyeing the gold, and he's made his intentions clear following a victory over Trent Barretta in the main event. After the win, Garcia grabbed a mic and openly challenged MJF for a future title shot. It didn't take long for the champ to respond, as he would take to X to accept the challenge, noting he's already spoken with Tony Khan to secure a date for the bout, and he would write, this company was built on the backs of young men who chose to be elite. Well, Danny, do you want a brush with greatness? I just got off the phone with our boss. This Wednesday night, the present will defend his title against the future. You're on. Tony Khan himself has also confirmed that the match will go down on next week's episode of Dynamite, this just over 1 week before the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. Next up, a major WWE stipulation has been confirmed. Leading up to this year's Survivor Series event, we've yet to see confirmation that the War Games match will make its return, this after it hit the WWE main roster for the first time last year. Well, now WWE have officially announced the comeback of War Games, continuing the tradition for the second consecutive year, something that came to light during the WWE Crown Jewel event last night, where an advert for Survivor Series aired. The advert showed a montage of moments from previous War Games bouts in WWE, showcasing both last year's highlights and some from the NXT stints. The glimpse into these matches featured many stars such as Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, and Becky Lynch. Although the reveal was tight-lipped about the specifics of the matches, the display of both male and female wrestlers hinted at the likely scenario of having separate War Games matches for men and women, akin to the 2022 edition. The change was noticed in the Survivor Series logo itself, as unlike the previous year, where the Survivor Series event deviated from the long-standing tradition of Raw vs SmackDown matches. This reflected in the camouflage colouring of the logo. The 2023 logo has brought back the iconic red and blue outline. This subtle change in the logo led to speculation about the possibility of a resurgence of brand warfare as the central theme of the event, potentially inside the War Games cage itself. The growing tension between Raw and SmackDown general managers Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis, as seen on recent episodes of WWE television, has further fueled the rumors of a brand rivalry making a comeback. But do you think this War Games will be Raw versus SmackDown, and who would you have represent each team? Let me know in the comments down below. And next up, Vince McMahon prevented another promotion's TV deal from going through. Following the recent merger of UFC and WWE to form the TKO group, there's been a lot of talk on how Dana White and Vince McMahon will coexist, given their past competitive relationship, with the UFC president recently revealing that McMahon had effed with him in the past. Speaking on the Triggered podcast this week, White would explain a specific incident that led to a UFC television deal being scrapped by McMahon himself. life. This when his MMA promotion came close to working with NBC Universal and the USA Network, and Dana would say, "I never saw Vince as competition, but I'm thinking Vince in his heyday, he saw everyone as competition. He was one of those guys that would just stick it to me just to do it. We were about to do a deal with NBC and it ends up we get to the 1 yard line and Vince has the final say on who can go on USA Network and who can't if you're a combat sport. Lorenzo Fertitta and I flew out to Connecticut, sat down with him, we do all the small talk, we're doing a deal with NBC. Vince sits back like Vince sits. We're about to do this deal, we're about to have fights on NBC and everything else, but you need to sign off on it." Vince says, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." We're like, "Why?" "I'm just not interested in it. I don't like the idea of you guys being on USA Network." The whole deal blows up. At the end of the day, it all worked out better. We end up on Fox. That's just one of 10 times where Vince did it. Despite the past frictions between the two men, Dana White and Vince McMahon find themselves on the same board of directors in TKO, where White serves as the UFC CEO, whilst McMahon is positioned as the executive chairman of the entire organization, higher in the pyramid than his former rival. And next, a current WWE star is open to letting bygones be bygones with CM Punk. The future of CM Punk is up in the air, with fans unsure what his next move will be. As discussed in last night's news video, a Fightful Select report recently suggested that WWE anticipated queries about a CM Punk return at the recent Fastlane press conference, and Triple H and talent were even prepped ahead of time. With that said, no question was asked by the media. However, WWE commentator and former friend of Punk has now been asked, as Corey Graves recently shared some insights regarding his now strained ties with the Second City Saints and the possibility of welcoming him back to WWE. In a conversation on the Kurt Angle show, the WWE announcer talked about the likelihood of CM Punk making a WWE comeback, this after his AEW exit in September, reminiscing about the good old times with his former companion, explaining how they were close buddies until a misunderstanding drove a wedge between them, and he would say,
"I'm amazed it took this long. It's been a few months for someone to actually throw this question my way, but usually I'm doing the hosting, so I'm asking everybody else. So this is a fun turn of events." Listen, Punk was always great to me when I was coming up. We were really close. Remember I told the story at the beginning of the show about how I missed my son being born? Punk was in Pittsburgh at the time. He was actually the first guy who held my son after he was born. Like we were tight. Fast forward a few years, I don't really know what happened. We sort of fell out for one reason or another. I said some disparaging things in a very public, unprofessional manner. We haven't spoken since prior to then.
Despite the past bitterness, Graves expressed his willingness to collaborate with Punk if it aligns with WWE's business interests, and he would add,
"But at the end of the day, rather than sitting here and wasting everybody's time, I'm a professional. I'm too old to hold grudges. I feel like whatever's happened is water under the bridge. I got a whole different life. I'm in a very different place in my life than I was, back when all that stuff went down. If it's right for business, who am I to say no? I'm a pro at the end of the day. I would happily do whatever is needed. And I would shake the man's hand and move on and see what life holds."
Given the report from earlier in the video, it looks like Graves and Punk may be set to talk once again in the near future, with it looking as if higher-ups share the same philosophy of doing what's best for business, despite past conflicts and fallings out. And next, this top free agent is wanted in All Elite Wrestling. Former Impact World Champion Sami Callihan currently finds himself without a contract. This after he and Impact Wrestling were unable to come to terms on a new agreement. Since then, fans have wondered if he could take a step up the ladder to sign for WWE or AEW, with stars from both companies pushing for this to happen. With that said, another AEW talent has added their name to the list of stars that want Callihan to become All Elite. This after Swerve Strickland discussed the possibility of his mentor joining the promotion. When talking about the importance that Sami played in his career, Swerve would say, "Of course I want to go after that guy. That's my mentor, man. I faced a lot of my mentors in the past in my career. Rey Mysterio was a big mentor to me back in Lucha Underground. Sami Callihan, when I had a really hot run on the indies and stuff, Sami was a big part of that. He's a free agent out there. I hope to see him in AEW or wherever you want to go. I just want him to prosper in this business for a long time. He deserves that. Brilliant mind." Sami Callihan would recently appear on Busted Open Radio to reveal that he's considering all options, specifically naming WWE, AEW, NJPW, and MLW when revealing where his future could lie. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 shocking Roman Reigns facts that WWE wants you to forget.